After what happened last night, you know, it's just I'm not gonna continue to allow myself to let any more of this happen. I mean, it's already been bad enough in my dump where at times it feels toxic and dull and boring. But at home, it's just it's just twice as toxic and stressful that there's just I told you, no matter how much effort I give to like trying to make things better here, you know, at the end of the day, it's still the same. Nothing has really been resolved. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just the facts of the matter. And look, there's been a stretch of really good vibes as of late here, but then and after what transpired last night, it's like I know I already had a really bad week. All right, and just knowing that I'm still in that dump and my spirit has been destroyed, and now last night it's just another one that I've experienced that I thought wasn't gonna happen anymore, but unfortunately, you know, it happened. And yeah, I shouldn't have not let my emotions get into it, but it is what it is. And I told myself if there's gonna be one more of this, then it's time for me to go. It's really time for me to move out. I need to start working on that as soon as possible because, you know, I can be told, well, it's just nonsense, and like I don't want to hear that nonsense stuff, dude. This ain't nonsense. This is real shit. It's real drama. It got to a point where even me and the boss are finally having a first friction for the first time in our friendship for like what is it now 27 years or so. Don't think for 1 second that our boss is going to be the next guy to be lost. I would hate for that to happen after what transpired, last night, right after that serious incident. Then I'm being told, no, don't take that seriously. It's just nonsense. You got to think about yourself, think about your future. Oh, well, I am. That's why I'm trying to get out of that dump. My dump is the center core of why I've been the worst version of myself for a long time. And being there for 13 years, I mean, I've yet to see one good thing happen to me in my 13th year. Because right now, nothing has happened, and I'm just ashamed that I'm still there, being useless, and just continuing to develop go away vibes as I've been feeling, like every time I'm there. So I gotta work on this because, like I said, I can't continue to tolerate myself for just letting another incident like this happen, and then just so much awkwardness. And it's not even the first time. It happened last year twice, and I'm starting to get very frustrated because I know it's this kind of awkwardness that's gonna happen for a while, knowing what transpired last night. And for the most part, I don't want to get too much into that, man. This is where I would need like a Patreon or some just somewhere, because I don't have time to put anything when it comes to like real content, like in another site. It's always been here on my channel. I gotta keep it to a limit, you know because I got a really big audience here. You know what I'm saying? So look, getting to this topic right here. I'm just going to talk about these disappointing, the friendships that have been disappointing, some to a certain degree, some to a major fault. Now, this is not for me to disrespect or to make it seem like my friendships with some of these guys never did well. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm never here to say just because of what the title says doesn't mean that my friendships never did well, or they had too many bad moments to where because they're disappointing. Those disappointments immediately led to the ending of my friendships. You know what I'm saying? I know I've always every time it comes to friend issues, I know I've touched a lot about my friendships with Andrew, Julio, Tristan, Robbie, and Dewey, you know, and there's been some disappointing moments, in the early part of our friendships, right? I'm talking about like the first few years, the first several years. But it got to a point where even some of those friendships. Let's start with Tristan, for example. My friendship with him was definitely a roller coaster ride. To where, we've had a couple, break silence periods. We've had a break where we did not talk for a week. Then there's another one where we didn't talk for 2 weeks. This is both in 2007. And then going into 2011, obviously with the West Hollywood incident where I got my first police ticket ever, he wasn't having it. I was out of control. And fortunately, Julio and Robbie stuck around at that time, but not him. So it took damn near 2 years until we reunited again. So it was a roller coaster ride in that aspect, and that, I thought our friendship fell apart in disappointment. But fortunately, I had another chance with him, at least for the next several years. And then obviously, it became official that our friendship was done after my one Facebook rant that I thought he should just kind of just let it go and all that. But it is what it is with him. All right. And kind of the same with Julio and Robbie, but not the way that Tristan's turned out. I mean, at one point I thought like, my friendship was already about to fall out with both of those guys, but it turns out it didn't. So since then, like in the later part of our tenure, things started to really smooth out, and it's gotten better. Our our chemistry's become more easygoing, right? And so we've done a lot of group hangouts together and what have you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we started doing a whole lot, like from 2013 all the way till at least till the pandemic, where obviously things have changed up, and obviously now these guys are both married, and even Andrew, right? So our hangouts have really been limited to where, because now they got their their own lives to deal with. And obviously even with that, like if it wasn't for my ongoing worst, we definitely would have continued. But it is what it is at this point. And obviously with Dewey, it's just I know the whole story with that, and what happened just last year in September. So it is what it is at this point. you know but I've always touched on my friendships with these guys, like in many videos, but I want to get more into just a little bit with guys like Lovely Mel, Anastasia, Diana, Kriza, Alexis, right? Jesse, Cecilia as well. Shout out to Cecilia. She did give me a Christmas card, and it's good that she's still thinking of me, like, hey, you're still that friend that's still around. You know what I'm saying? So I will do the same for her. I mean, I know it's already gonna be mid-January, but I'll be sure to get one for her this year, and I gotta, yeah. So yeah, it's with some of these other guys, like, yeah, there's been plenty of disappointment, right? And some of it was on my end, some of it was not on my end, right? But nevertheless, I was still able to have these long, lasting friendship tenures, especially with guys like Anastasia. That at one point, like in 2018, I know that I got into a car accident. Next thing you know, I pretty much broke her heart. Like we did not talk for a long ass time until I think sometime in 2020 during the shutdown, and we started to somewhat reunite from there. And then things just started to get better, right? But I know there's been some moments, like in our first stint, where it's just a lot of ups and downs. Some moments just got rough, but nevertheless, and she was still fun to hang out with and all that. So, it's just a matter of I can deal with you know with such rough moments like that. And in the case of Lovely Mel, I know um, we've had a lot of conversations, good and mostly not so good. Uh, I want to say mostly not so good, mostly good and some not so good, to where you know she had an issue with me, just in that I thought I could not understand her well over her situation. And and I know she's battled with some financial issues, and even her own family issues as well. You know what I'm saying? So, but at the end of the day, we still were able to, to really maintain our friendship regardless. So, it's all good from there, despite some of those disappointing moments where, she thought that I had I wasn't able to understand. But I think the disappointment just did not come until later in our tenure, right? And where she saw my worst is when she just totally went off, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? And it just happened to be last year. In the case of Alexis, dude, I think it's just a lot of a lot of roughness in our friendship, right? And look, you know, not to say that he wasn't a good friend. There's some parts with him where I thought like he just needed to be patient about. And I said about the whole airport thing in the video where when I talked about if our friendship was going to continue. And in some cases, like, I just think he needs to just chill out and all that. And I remember that we had a near fallout at the start of New Year's Day in 2023. And ultimately since then, like, we were able to just, you know, we did not talk as much. We FaceTime a couple of times, but after that, that was just it. I mean, I have not really seen him since. So I have not really just been have seen him since what, 2017, and that was it. So he must be living his own life now. So I'm not gonna really worry too much, whatever he does. But yeah, there was plenty of disappointment in the first part of the first stint of our friendship. Even if we hung out, I mean, our hangouts have been fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's just been a lot of just impatience on his end. And as much as I try to deal with that, it's just becoming too much for me. And that he just needs to understand that, you know like the rest of us have lives. And we can't just be there for each other like all the time. So this is where I gotta, like, he just needs to just understand it from that aspect. And so we'll see how it goes. And I don't know at this point if our friendship's going to continue. Since I have not talked to him for way too long now. So, and same with Anastasia, since it's going to be almost a year, right? And yeah, with Diana, I mean, look, it's like, yeah, it's been a really smooth, very loving, amazing friendship that we had, at least until the last few years, where that became a disappointment, to where at the end of the day, I mean, I kind of saw it coming, but it wasn't to where I thought she was finally gonna be fed up with me. And turns out she was. you know I thought she was able to continue to tolerate my worst, right? And at the end, it's just it just ended the way it ended. But I gotta tell you, we done, like, our first, the first several years have just been amazing. The friendship that we had, just doing a whole lot of outdoor adventure. Yes, I touched on the hot air balloon ride that we did, and plenty of other outdoor adventures. You know what I'm saying? So with Diana, it just had to end in a disappointing fashion like that. And the same way with Andrew, with just like the last couple of years. And more like 2024. Over my dump. The reasoning of that, my dump, this has just mentally corrupted me. He just didn't want to hear any of that. So he just he just left me for good after the first two group text incident. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, dude. And for Jesse, look, it's just I don't know, man. There's just some things with him that just make him a whole different person that than compared to the rest of my friends that some I can tolerate, some I couldn't. Obviously, I know the incident that happened that got me and Carlos involved. I'm not gonna really talk about it here, but I'm sure of that. You know, it just so happened that it was so random, like over a goddamn joke that's not even as bad as Abbas's was at the time, and somehow he just went on to just did what he did, and I did not appreciate that. So I mean, say what you want about me and the roughness and me and Alexis's friendship. Me and Jesse, look, we done a few hikes together and couldn't think of enough saving me from the mountain, but for the most part, it's just been like it's just been a lot of at least with that part, that incident that happened. It just showed some of our roughness, and it still did to some degree. Even though we still did some hangouts, just him and I one on one, but after that it's just funny enough, like I've been told to just cut ties with him a long time ago, and it turns out he did cut ties with me, just thinking that he can't handle my ongoing rants on social media. So I just thought sounds so funny that it just happened like that. So it is what it is. And with Cecilia, shout out again to her for giving me that Christmas card. We've had some. She also had some moments of impatience in the first part of our friendship, and this is before she got a boyfriend, and things are starting to smooth out between us, and but then firsthand she was just very impatient. I couldn't deal with her like that. It was disappointing, but then it started to smoothing out. So credit to her, and she's got her man now, and maybe sometime. I mean, I'll definitely do a catch up with her, and maybe and Anastasia as well, hoping that they're both still around. Oh yeah, and one more thing about Kriza. Yeah, I know it's a roller coaster ride as well, right? I already touched on it on or rather, my friendship reflection with Kriza, and just last year in July, I mean, and so I touched on what I needed to say, and it has been a roller coaster ride between us, and it's been a few fallouts, and they were short lived, and next thing you know, we came back, and and after what happened in 2018, the accusation of me thinking that I blocked her and what have you, she got super mad, and next thing you know, I was out of social media for at least a year and a half, more like Facebook for a year and a half, because I did come back to Instagram, and Kriza and I had just been in touch mostly by Google Hangouts, or actually, when I came back to IG, she was there, and we started keeping in touch again. And I thought, that one just like it had plenty of disappointment of that, because of what I just mentioned, and also the fact that I didn't meet her in person. That's what really ended my 2019 year on a bad note and what have you. But nevertheless, we were still able to talk here and there, but not as much as as before. And obviously see what you dealt with, and next thing you know, at the end, it just did not work out as it should. You know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, I mean, yeah, there's some other friendships that that had some disappointments as well, but I didn't really include them here. So I just thought I'd touch on mostly a majority of these people that haven't really talked much about, since I already covered some of the other guys, as having touched on that a whole lot, like way back, when plenty of my other videos. So that being said, I'm gonna leave it at that. So I just thought I'd express this about disappointment like that. But at the end of the day, I still had some great memories with all of these guys. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna leave it at that. Peace out, y'all.